I, like many others, believed health care was a good to be distributed to all. I was very trusting of my doctors, and I began my college education in nursing school with the hopes of becoming a midwife. It is evident that aspects of healthcare have motives other than providing the best care to each patient. I am passionate about providing benevolent care and supporting my clients in the best possible way. The reproductive health disparities of black women in the U.S. alarmed me and motivate me to receive a master's in midwifery and donate my extra time and resources to girls and women in need, regardless if they are pregnant or if they can or cannot afford my services. The history of black women's experience with medicine reveals injustices that have been carried out by doctors in particular and the medical field in general. Health disparities and exploitation of black bodies have been fueled by ideals born in the times of slavery. Examples of these injustices are illustrated in the literature of Toni Morrison and historical accounts of the famous 19th century surgeon James Marion Sims. Nobel Prize winner Toni Morrison wrote the novel Home, set in the 1950s, depicting the ways in which black women have been victimized by healthcare during that time. Morrison also includes the medical neglect of black mental health and the exploitation of black bodies, even mentioning that during these times, black bodies from mental institutions were given to hospitals for experimentation. Korean War veteran Frank Money is suffering from PTSD, but sets out on a mission to rescue his sister after receiving a haunting message. Come fast, she be dead if you tarry. Responding to the message, Frank travels from Seattle, Washington to Atlanta, Georgia, where C is in terrible condition. C left her hometown and runs away to Atlanta with a sly boyfriend who eventually leaves her. To support herself, C agrees to work for what turns out to be a sinister physician who abuses and experiments on her. Professions involving health practitioners automatically suggest a sense of authority over their patients, along with the expectation of trust and compliance. But as you can see, the trusted doctor saw C's body as something to be used for beneficial outcomes to white women. Frank rescues his sister and returns her to the hometown of Lotus, where the women of the town nurse C back to health. While the medical professional harmed C, it was the women of her community who restored her. C wasn't the first black woman whose body was disposable in the process of achieving medical advancements. This kind of exploitation has been happening since the 19th century. One example is the practice of the 19th century surgeon James Marion Sims. His legacy still stands as the father of modern gynecology. His fame and respect survived with only half of the story. James' innovations are praised, yet his methods and reasoning were costly for black women. 3 enslaved women in particular, Betsy, Anarcha, and Lucy, were subject to repeated surgical experiments without anesthesia. It was believed that black people did not feel pain as much as whites and that they could tolerate it better. Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy underwent torturous surgical procedures for the betterment of white gynecology. The ideas of healthcare originated with black bodies being constantly undervalued and seen as disposable. Similarly, scientists today hardly share their fame and recognition, despite the fact that it is usually at the expense of others. This foundation is not easily torn apart or remodeled with the signing of a few amendments and the passing of a couple laws. Today, Sims is still well respected, while the slave stories are still unknown and untold. Even now, the histories of injustices to people of color are hidden as much as possible. I've learned that healthcare is not a good to be distributed for all, and being black serves to be much more costly in the medical field due to the historical concepts of devaluing the black body.